Thanks for listening to the Free-For-All After Party from Fox 4. The best news, sports, and weather is available anytime at fox4news.com. Now, enjoy the show. All right, hello everybody. It is February 16th on this Wednesday. It's Mike's Friday. He's going away for the next 5 days. Mike, where are you going?
Well, Sam, I'm not sure that the podcast listeners really need to know that. If that's okay, if I just have my life and just live it, it's all right. I know you feel the need to share every single GD thing about your life, but maybe I'll keep some things private, if that's okay. Suffice to say, I'm not even going to say whether we'll be in town or not, because I don't want the robbers to know if we're going to be out of town.
Or the stalkers, perhaps. We'll keep where you're going a secret.
But I just found out I'm getting Monday off as well. I was coerced into taking Monday. We've got so many days to use. They're like, can you take the holiday Monday? So.
Mike has days on days. I don't even want to know how many days you've built into your vacation vault the last 27 years. But see, what I appreciate with Mike is you never really... You take your time, but you're very fair about the time that you take. You could be taking a lot more time.
Well, thanks, Sam. It's just my life revolves around this job, and it gives me my sense of self-worth. So if I'm away too long, I lose all my confidence.
We're kind of excited. This is the 4th edition of Free-For-All, the After Party podcast, if I can speak, but... If you notice, our audio today sounds pristine, and that is because I'm labeling him our executive producer of this pod, Mark Jones. That is his title when it comes to this. He's gifted us with these 2 very nice microphones. So currently, because you can't see us, we are in our little sports cave, sports office. And I'm digging the way this sounds so far.
I think the audio is great on these. I really do. It reminds me of my start in radio way back when. It's 6:36 in the nighttime right now. Here are the Carpenters. The only problem I have right now is that we don't need to be sitting this far apart, and we're sitting a long ways apart.
You want me to come over there and sit next to you? I can wheel my chair over.
I'm not asking that, but I'm just saying... Just because of the way it's set up with the computers and stuff now, but the mics are great.
Yeah, we like it. I too, Mike, when I first wanted to get into broadcasting, I was told that I had a good radio voice. My voice is the type. Have you ever listened to those songs where the girl kind of comes in and she can just change her voice on a dime like this? I can literally do that. I would just be very good if I was playing the girl in like a love song. I could come in and do that interlude part and be very convincing.
Well, what's stopping you?
I don't know. I can't do it right now. You would have to give me a situation. Anyways, there's a lot of sports talk going on today involving the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to get into the big story here in just a minute. I'll let you lead into that, Mike. Yeah. But we heard from Mike McCarthy yesterday as he did a little appearance on the Rich Eisen show. Here is what he had to say when he was asked about his recent discussions with Jerry Jones as it pertains to his job security, all of that. Take a listen.
Yeah, no, we talked about it. We talked about Dan's situation.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. We talked about Sean Payton's narrative also. It's been discussed.
You have discussed that with him. Huh? What is anything you can share that you have discussed?
Oh, no, I mean, really the conversation was, you and I are in this, back to back, and it's a partnership, and just focus on what we need to do moving forward. And he made some, personal comments about how he feels about it, but that's really for him and I. But I'm very, very comfortable with our relationship and our dialogue. I mean, it's at the end of the day, we both want the same thing, and it's to win the world championship. And definitely the narratives are unusual, but at the end of the day, I think you got to trust the relationships and the communication and the connection that you have in our leadership group, and I think we're doing everything we possibly can to build a championship team here.
All right, Mike. So, it's not often that we get to hear McCarthy speak as candidly as he did in that interview with Rich Eisen, which I think is a testament to what a great interviewer he is, because typically he doesn't divulge much about his relationship with Jerry, but I thought his comments were quite interesting.
Yeah, I think McCarthy was kind of locked and loaded for this one. I think he wanted to get some things off his chest, because the most recent Jerry quote that was provocative regarding the whole coaching situation was Jerry implying that, yeah, Dan Quinn stuck around, in part because he knows there's a possibility he could be head coach someday. I mean, why do you do that to Mike McCarthy? And McCarthy just kind of spoke nonstop for about 10 minutes, it seemed like,
yes.
didn't it? Without hardly taking a breath. And a few things were really interesting, I thought, in his remarks. One, he said that Dan Quinn came to him and asked him if he would rather that Quinn take one of these head coaching jobs just because of the awkwardness of the situation. And as McCarthy put it, he said to Quinn, 10 years ago, I would have told you to get the hell out of here, but now, it's about winning, and you want to win and I want to win, and that's great. And Dan Quinn here gives us the best chance to win. Whether I totally believe that whole situation exactly the way he described it, I don't know. But I really thought McCarthy came off as a sympathetic figure after that interview, didn't you? And I think Rich Eisen helped in that regard, because Rich throughout was saying, God, what is Jerry doing here?
Yeah.
And I've said many times that I think McCarthy is unfairly judged in some ways because of the way he presents himself to the media. He doesn't do himself any favors. He's not a self-promoter.
No.
Parcells was here all those years ago, and granted, he won the 2 Super Bowls and everything. But, their winning percentages are almost exactly the same as NFL coaches. And nobody would ever guess that just because of the way they present themselves. And Bill was a storyteller, and he just could hold the media in the palm of his hand. McCarthy's not that kind of guy. But I thought this was one case where McCarthy really helped himself by the way he conducted himself during an interview.
Yeah, I think you did sympathize with him, Mike, just because of this whole dynamic. I mean, usually coaches that come in here are being referred to as Jerry Jones' puppet, or whatever Jerry says, that's what's going to happen. So he did say that he would rather not hear about all of these rumblings and the noise. He said that. He's like, I would prefer this not be the situation. He didn't get into the specifics of what that conversation entailed between him and Jerry, but I'm sure that McCarthy expressed his feelings of like, hey, maybe I didn't necessarily appreciate the way you were dangling my job in front of me. And McCarthy strikes me to be a team guy who absolutely wants to win. But at the same time, it has to be a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling knowing that, hey, my defensive coordinator could possibly replace me, and that's been brought to my attention. And hey, Sean Payton is taking the year off, we're pretty sure to be in TV, and then is probably going to come back to coaching in some capacity, right? Especially if the Cowboys do not deliver next season. So I do admire McCarthy for the way that he's taken this all in. And again, it's not typical that we here in the local media get to hear that from McCarthy. And I guarantee you, if he was doing an interview with all of us, we wouldn't be getting the bite that we heard yesterday.
Well, and you talk about whether the Cowboys can deliver or not next year. Then you get into the whole question of what delivering means. We had Norm on from the Ticket the other night, and I thought he brought up a great point. What if McCarthy's 13-4 next year and loses in the first round of the playoff? Are you going to fire a guy who's gone? Were they 12-5 this year? I think. What if if he wins whatever it would be, 25 games over 2 years, and that isn't good enough? He gets fired after that. I think there's a chance that he would. I think, in part because of what we're talking about here, because of the guys who would be waiting in the wings to possibly replace him. But I don't know, this is a topic for another day. Are Sean Payton and
Dan Quinn,
Mike McCarthy kind of the same guys, really? I mean, they McCarthy won 1 Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. Payton won 1 with Drew Brees. Okay, that's kind of a push, if you ask me. Quinn is the golden boy right now, but if that defense takes a big step back next year, is his intensity and his ability to communicate with players going to be seen as quite as productive? So I think a lot can change in the course of a season, or even less than that.
Yeah, and to me, to answer your question, losing in the first round isn't good enough, even if you finish 13-4. I'm sorry, especially because of what has transpired since they lost to the 49ers with all this talk about, is Mike McCarthy the guy for the job? To me, if they go and they lose in the first round again next season, I think the McCarthy experiment needs to come to an end. And that's not a knock against him. I just don't think, if we're talking about Jerry Jones and how badly he wants to win a Super Bowl, that window is closing even more as each year passes. Why waste your time? Because for this team, if they're able, to retain most of their team, I know it's going to be the offseason, they're probably going to lose some guys, but they have very good odds of winning the Super Bowl, top 5 odds when it comes to next season. Take that for what it's worth. So, yeah, it's interesting, these coaching to owner dynamics.
No, and I think Jerry's probably in that place right now, that if they don't make a significant run in the playoffs, he doesn't want to waste any more time. But what's got to be so frustrating for him is even he knows that changing a coach after 2 years isn't the way he'd want to do things, and it guarantees nothing. We've seen that. The change guarantees absolutely nothing. So many things have to break right for you, and ultimately you need your best players to make plays at the most important time, and the Cowboys just didn't get that often enough this past year.
Let's pivot a little bit, Mike, and I'll let you lead into this, which has been the big story for the Cowboys on this Wednesday. It's become a national story and took no time to become that.
It's a blockbuster, the ESPN exposé, and it's a long article on ESPN.com, 8 or 9 pages. Don Van Natta Jr., just a prolific reporter, very well-respected reporter. It's allegedly a $2.4 million settlement that the Cowboys paid in response to cheerleaders' allegations in 2015 that Rich Dalrymple, who was the longtime public relations vice president, the allegations are that Dalrymple filmed them or tried to film them as they were undressing inside the cheerleading locker room back in 2015. As I said, it was during the kickoff luncheon at AT&T Stadium. So there's that part of it. And then there's another voyeurism allegation having to do with Cowboys Vice President Charlotte Jones, the daughter of Jerry, of course, that a viewer during the Cowboys draft, watching the live stream from the War Room, again, this is in April 2015, claims to have seen Dalrymple with his cell phone taking upskirt photos of Charlotte Jones. So this is what the ESPN article alleges, that there is a sworn affidavit in the case of the fan who saw this, that they have knowledge of the settlement. And in essence, the Cowboys have admitted that a spokesman for the Cowboys have admitted that the settlement occurred, but that it happened not because any guilt has been admitted. They said there had been no wrongdoing according to their investigation, but they came to the settlement anyway because they talked about how seriously they took the allegations. There's so much to unpack here, and I don't pretend to have extensive enough knowledge of it to unpack it in a way that would do it justice. Obviously, this is all based on the ESPN report, and it's just one that really it was a stunner for those of us who've been covering this team for a long time, who've known Rich Dalrymple for a long time.
I wanted to stop you right there for a second, Mike, because the word voyeurism has come up a lot. And we talked about this earlier, that how many of our viewers or listeners would actually know what that word means. And the definition of it is the practice of gaining sexual pleasure from watching others when they are naked or engaged in sexual activity, because that is what he's being accused of, inappropriate voyeurism. When we're talking about Rich Dalrymple, Mike, for people that aren't in our line of work, that aren't doing our jobs, he is a very important figure within the Cowboys organization. So for people that might not understand what a public relations vice president is, break that down a little bit for people to help them understand, because for the viewer just switching, they're like, well, what does that exactly mean in terms of his job?
Rich ran the PR department for the Cowboys for 32 years. He came here with Jimmy Johnson from the University of Miami and then stayed after Jimmy left. And, Rich really became more than a PR director. I mean, he was, in some ways, I don't know, Jerry Jones' right-hand man. And I mean, to get access to Jerry, you had to go through Rich. That's just the way it was. And to get access to other people at times, you had to go through Rich as well. But he was always Jerry's guy and a very powerful figure in that organization. I heard somebody mention it on the radio Wednesday, and I think it was well put, that he was probably the most important member of that organization who didn't have the last name Jones.
Yeah,
I don't think that's overstating it. Maybe Will McClay would be in there. So very powerful. And he retired, Rich did, on February 2nd. And there was an article in the Dallas Morning News. Other than that, there wasn't any fanfare that I'm aware of, and the ESPN article points that out. Rich, quoted by ESPN, says that the retirement had nothing to do with research being done for this article by the ESPN reporters, and that he wasn't contacted about the article until after he had already decided to retire. But that's the timeline. Clearly this article, which was published Wednesday, wasn't written in 2 days. I mean, there'd been a lot of research done on these incidents that allegedly occurred 7 years ago, 6.5 years ago. But that's kind of the timeline we're looking at there. It's just bigger picture, Sam, and we talk about this a lot, but it's just, and not to throw this in with other things, because this is totally different, I understand. But just when it comes to what we do, it's always something with this team. It's unbelievable. You think the McCarthy thing is going to be the big story of the day, the fact that he gives that interview, and then this blockbuster comes out. But this is an entirely different level, obviously, given the climate right now.
Yeah,
and given the attention that is given and should be given to stories having to do with potential, harassment and worse, and what's gone on allegedly in the Washington organization as well. So we'll see where it goes from here, but it's big. Even if it doesn't go any further than this, it's a huge story for the Cowboys.
You referenced the whole Washington scandal, and this story now with the Cowboys just hones in on treatment of women in the workplace. And who I feel for are those 4 cheerleaders who had to experience that. One of them was reported in this ESPN article as saying that she saw Rich Dalrymple come into that locker room, and he had said in the article that it was a mistake, but he was one of the few that had access to that because of the key cards. I feel for those women to be put in a situation where they feel like their voices are not being heard. And you reference the fact that, Rich is a very powerful man in the position that he's in. And the Cowboys organization is one of the most powerful organizations. And it's just sad to me. It's sad to me when you hear these stories come out, and it makes you wonder, when you're talking about the Cowboys organization as a whole, is this just the surface of a lot of other deeper things that are waiting in the wings to be discovered? You hope that it isn't, but again, I just feel for these women feeling like they don't have a voice in this situation that has now become a national story.
No, I mean, I agree, and I think anybody would feel that way. Nobody would want their, if you're a guy, their wife or their daughter put in that situation. And it's a hard story to, I think, report on fairly at this point.
Yeah,
to be honest,
we're basing it on this.
Because we're basing it on that ESPN story by a reporter who I think is very good.
Incredible.
And very thorough.
Yes.
But, by the same token, I don't know. It's hard to know exactly what conclusions to jump to. Cowboys did pay the settlement, and
right. And why did they pay the
exactly?
settlement?
And that's a bottom line question there. But on the other hand, Rich denies that he says one incident was an accident or was accidental, the walking into the locker room, and the other one just simply didn't happen, the Charlotte Jones thing. So that's his side of it.
Which the Charlotte Jones thing to me is the really bizarre portion or nugget coming out of this story. I mean, it's all a lot, right? And it's all heavy, but that to me is one of the more bizarre, excerpts coming out from this report.
Yeah, I it's hard to wrap your head around that one. Even that kind of allegation, frankly, and I'm not sure I really want to wrap my head around it at this point.
And like we said, a topic like this, it's difficult to talk about, I mean, it's not an easy thing to talk about, and certainly on a platform like this and a podcast, it lends itself better to being able to discuss it. But in terms of a TV platform, it's a very, like you mentioned, because there is all of this is being based around this one report. So
well, and I do think where the bigger story is, as you alluded to, is where it goes from here.
Right.
And there's talk of Congress getting involved in an investigation with the Washington Commanders. And would that extend to other teams? And would that extend potentially to a situation like this? And on you go. To my knowledge, police were never called on this thing with the Cowboys. So, law enforcement never got involved. But yeah, Wednesday was just one of those, and I've had a few of them in this job through the years, but just one of those days where you just kind of, you shake your head and say, well, I thought I'd seen everything, but here's something new.
Mm-hmm. Having nothing to do with any of the players on the team, which, when you talk about the off season, a lot of the times we're always saying, okay, what player is going to be in the news for whatever reason, but this situation having nothing to do.
Well, and here's the irony. This would have been exactly the kind of fire that Dalrymple would have been trying to put out.
Right.
If he were still in his old job and someone else had been accused of this. So he finds himself on the other end of it, and again denies that there was any wrongdoing.
Yeah, we'll see how this story progresses and what comes out of it. We're going to take a quick little break. When we come back, we're going to talk about why Mike and I are just unmotivated right now. Stay with us.
First on.
Well, good morning. It is 4 a.m.
Last off.
Fox 4 News, the late night edition.
News on your time. And more time for local news. More than just the facts of a story. The whole story. No one else does it. No one else can. Fox 4. The station more North Texans depend on. Day and night. Here for you.
Welcome back to Free For All After Party, the podcast, our 4th edition. We're happy for those of you that have liked, subscribed, and shared. We encourage you to keep doing that. We're trying to build this thing from the ground up. So our producer
Landry is forced to sit right in between us, right? Landry, say hi.
Hi.
How long have you been here, Landry? Speak into the mic.
2 months.
And are we fun? Are you liking it?
You're a blast.
Landry, have any old senile sports anchors gotten your name wrong today? Be honest.
I have been called a different name by Mike Doozy. There's some cursing involved too. It's abusive here. Please help.
It's all right. We'll give Mike one pass, but that's it.
Might not be the day for that. But yeah, go ahead.
So it's February, and Mike has been bringing this up a few times in recent weeks. But I agree with you. you say, Mike, that, there's always this hype around the holidays. Like, it feels like in September, we're always talking about, okay, like, we got Halloween, which, whatever, we're adults, so maybe we don't have as much fun with Halloween. But then it's like the countdown to Thanksgiving, and then you have Christmas, and we're talking all about what we're doing for the holidays. And as you pointed out, it's like right after the New Year, it's like none of this ish ever happened. Am I right?
And it's funny because I say this, and my wife's like, every year you say this. But it's a combo for me, because it is the thing where we all love the holidays, most of us do anyway, and then right after New Year's is over, it's like it never happened. But then for us, you combine that with the fact that the NFL season comes to an end, usually earlier than later for the Cowboys.
Unfortunately.
And so much of what we do is based around the 5 months for the Cowboys, from the beginning of training camp until
Literally
their final
July
game.
till,
in this case, playoff game. So it just takes a little bit of adjustment, but I think probably a few people kind of battle the blues this time of the year.
Well, and that's like, I'm not always happy,
It's a very generic statement.
Well, I mean, I think overall, if I were to describe myself, I would say overall I'm a bubbly, happy person for the most part.
I would agree.
Right?
Yep.
But I'm definitely moody and I'm definitely emotional. That's because I'm a Cancer. That's my zodiac sign. And that's one of my characteristics. Cancers are among, if not the most emotional of all the zodiacs. So I feel everything very deeply. I feel deep things deeply and I feel light things deeply. So right now.
Well, I was going to look at, oh God, I hope I'm recording this thing right now. Oh no.
Let's
look at this.
Wait.
See if I'm recording it.
Pause.
I honestly don't know.
Oh no.
Oh.
No. You're here.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Jonesy. I was going to look up Sagittarius. We should leave that in, actually.
This is real life. So Mike
This
is
is the old
recording
man
off
not
of my
knowing,
work phone, and he thought we had just been talking for almost 25 minutes. No, we are recording.
I just want to look up what Sagittarii.
Oh, you're a
supposedly-
Sagittarius.
What is a Sagittarius personality?
So for men,
Oh, this is totally wrong for me. Totally wrong.
what is it? Go ahead.
Sagittarians are typically outspokenly optimistic extroverts who elicit respect and affection from everyone they come into contact with. Loyal, smart, assertive, and compassionate personality.
Okay.
I'm pretty compassionate, but the other time I'm not optimistic and I'm not an extrovert. So wrong.
No, but that's one thing. But another part of your qualities, Sagittarius, people that are Sagittarius, that's their zodiac sign, they're usually adventurous.
Not.
They're always seeking for something.
Nah, don't care. Anyway, you believe it if you want. That's fine.
All right, moving on. But I have really hit a wall this week. So I know people get tired of me talking about this little swimming thing. People are probably like, we don't care, Sam. We don't even care if you swam in college, some
more.
washed up swimmer. But I really am doing the challenge. But it's like yesterday I had to force myself to go to the pool. And it has nothing to do with it being cold outside. The pool is heated, whatever. I had to force myself to go. And then Friday, the week before, I also had to force myself. And today I woke up and I'm just like, I cannot go. Like, I could not bring myself really to do that. And I'm just like in one of these blah moods where it's hard for me to get motivated. And for the most part, I feel like I can generally motivate myself. It doesn't really, I've always been that way, but for whatever reason, I'm just in this rut where I'm not feeling it. And I want to be feeling it.
Tell the people who you saw at the pool yesterday. You think that'd be cool?
I saw George Dunham's sister.
All right.
At the pool. She actually stopped me mid-swim when I was doing a set. And she's like, Sam, I'm George Dunham's sister, and I had to say something to you because I know you guys talk about swimming, and I didn't want to be like, oh, I met Sam, and she doesn't know who I am, blah, blah, blah. So that was really cool. But no, for me, I think, I'll come out of it. I try to be a healthy person. I'm on this kind of like fitness journey. If I'm being candid, I'm almost 10 pounds heavier than I was back in July, which I'll be able to take it off. I mean, I lost a good amount of weight.
God, you're going to reveal everything on this podcast.
Well, I'm just
aren't
like,
you?
I might as well
Good
be honest,
Lord.
because I don't want it to be like this thing where it's like, oh, you know, she magically got into shape and never goes through ups and downs. No, I'm like almost 10 pounds heavier than I was back in July, but I'm still much lighter than what I was. But for me, it's like, it's my eating. I just need to do both consistently. So I don't know. The two go hand in hand for me. And then I put all this pressure on myself and feel like I'm failing. So,
Well, I do think, and you're a lot younger than I am, but I do think the older that you get, the more it's more about diet and less about exercise.
Yeah.
And that's unfair, especially when you're a swimmer like you are and can burn the number of calories you can exercising. But it's just, I had to stop running 5 or 6 years ago, and man, it's really been a battle to keep the weight off ever since. And it was a battle even before then, but it's just, with me, it's just all about diet. I still have the diet of a 15-year-old, you know, with the junk food and stuff.
And it doesn't help that here in our weather office, there is an assortment charcuterie board of all kinds of awful things. Like, we're talking every flavor of Pop-Tart that you could possibly want. It's tempting you out there, screaming our names. There's candy jars, there's chips, and I'm just like, I've come to the realization that if I have 2 little pieces of candy at the end of the night here, that's like my little treat. But the problem is sometimes I don't stop at 2, and Mike likes to hide his candy when he comes back here to the office. Like, I can't hear it rustling in his pocket.
Well, I try to do the intermittent fasting thing during the week. In 8 hours, there's an 8-hour window where you can eat, which doesn't sound like that big a deal, but it means basically that if you have like a late morning breakfast like I like to after I exercise, like my window today was 10:30 to 6:30.
Yeah, that's...
So I had a salad right at 6 o'clock or 5:45 or whatever.
Yep.
And then I did have 3 little, they're little Halloween snack size candy bars.
Wait, what about
in
the
weather
French
center.
fries that you had in the car on the way over? Didn't you?
Well, we don't need to get into that. But I had a couple, 3, we'll say 3 of the little candy bars right before 6:30, and I'm like, you know, that's not horrible. I'm ashamed to say that's better than what I usually do.
No, but that's good because, you know, we get off of work at like 11:15 by the time you leave the office. So if you're saying to me that you cut off your window of eating at 6:30, I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I have done intermittent fasting too. I do it here and there. I haven't been as strict with it lately, but I do think that there's benefits to that also. But when we talk about being sad or whatever, what I do find comfort in right now, and I don't know if there's a lot of you out there who are like this, and it kind of started when the pandemic was happening, binge watching shows. And I hadn't really been doing that for a long time. And then I just decided to cave and I bought a subscription to HBO Max because I had been hearing about this show called Euphoria, which is not one of the lightest shows that you could be watching. Mike has seen a couple episodes. Zendaya stars in it. And now I have a girl crush on Zendaya because I just think that she's absolutely phenomenal in this series. And not to get all into it, but I'm already up to date. I've binge watched it like the last 4 days. I was up till like 3:30 this morning watching it, 4:30 a.m. the day before. And it talks about mental illness and all of these issues that teenagers deal with, you know, coming from broken families and the dynamics of broken families and just how hard it is, you know, to get out of your own way sometimes. And sometimes that has nothing to do with you, but it has to do with the system and what you were born into. Some things are out of your control, but it struck a chord with me because none of what happens in this series is unrealistic. It's all very realistic, and I think that's what makes it even scarier, you know?
Yeah, I need to watch it in more sequential order. I think I'll watch an episode or part of an episode when I get home at night as I'm falling asleep. So I'll watch, like, is it an hour each episode?
Yeah, each episode's about
an hour. I'll watch 40 minutes or something and then wake up the next morning and it's, you know, on my phone still or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty gritty, pretty edgy as we say. But yeah, I was never a binge watcher, but during the pandemic, during like the heart of the pandemic when we were working from home, we watched a lot.
What are you watching now?
Different things. I'm not really binging anything right now. We watched a movie the other night on Netflix with this actress Olivia Colman called The Lost Daughter. It's a very heavy sort of, I don't know if artsy is the right word, movie. She's a great actress. She was in The Queen. She played the older Queen Elizabeth. And so we watched that. It was, it wasn't exactly uplifting. Let's put it that way. But
looks like both you and I just want to feel badly every night. So this is what we turn to.
But I enjoyed it. I'm to the point now where I like action movies and stuff too. I mean, I'll watch the new Jackass movie at some point. It's fun stuff like that. But I like stuff that's just well acted. Just because at the heart of it all, Sam, I'm an artist. That's what it comes down to.
You're an entertainer.
Am I?
Yes.
Okay.
They say this is a popular line from Britney Spears, one of her songs from her album Off the Circus. I'm just listen. And I think she has a good point. There's only two types of people in the world, the ones who entertain and the ones who observe. Tell me I'm wrong.
The ones who entertain and the ones who observe.
All right, that's going to do it for our 4th edition of Free for All After Party, the podcast. And Mike, you're going to officially sign us off from here on out, so take it away.
All right, for Sammy the G, this is MFD. Till next time, everybody, we love you. We mean it.